Kia ora and welcome. Land use capability is a long-standing concept used in land management at various scales and more recently being applied to farm planning. LUC is derived from many data layers and resources, and our new land resources portal aims to provide deeper information and support for anyone drawing on LUC in their work. Thomas Caspari, famous already for the Sister Soils portal, will give a guided tour of the portal, and Andrew Manderson will provide some context and future thoughts around LUC. I'll be back at the end to help with your questions, so don't forget to put them in the chat box as soon as you can. Thomas, have you got the slides up?
Yes, should be all good to go.
We're not seeing your...
Coming up.
There we go. Great. Over to you.
Okay, so Andrew, you want to have a start with the intro?
Okay, yep, if you just flip to the outline. Okay, we're covering three things today. So in a moment, I'll give a quick introduction to the New Zealand Land Use Capability System. The main purpose of this webinar, 95% of it, is to introduce our new land resources portal. So Thomas is going to cover that. And towards the end there, I've been invited just to give a little bit of insight into some of the things that we're currently working on at Manaaki Whenua that relate to the New Zealand Land Resource Inventory and land use capability. But first off, so I'll make a start. Okay, what is land use capability? Just to set the scene here for Thomas. At its simplest, land use capability is an 8-class classification of land. So if you think of it, at one end of the spectrum, we've got class 1 land, which is our best elite land, creme de la creme. We don't actually have very much of this land in New Zealand, so it's actually really worth protecting. Then at the other end of the spectrum, we have class 8 land, LUC class 8, which is effectively mountains, barren wastes, raw sand, anything with effectively nil production value. Even low value to ecology. Land use capability is also a system, so it's both a method of appraising land, so it actually was developed specifically for farm planning, so Dust Bowl 1930s USA from memory. But equally, just in the way that people use the term, it's also a national classification of land in New Zealand contained in a database. I'm not going to dig into those details. There's plenty of material online, so even Thomas is going to cover some of this with the portal in terms of there's actually quite a bit of background that's available, so I'm not going to get into that detail. Next point is that we have a considerable legacy regarding land use capability in New Zealand. Cut to the chase with this. So that period between the 1950s and the 1990s was an absolute juggernaut of institution around soil conservation and land management. It's actually hard to imagine how big it was. So the bodies like the Soil Conservation Rivers Control Council, Division of DSIR, Ministry of Works Division, the WASCO, there's another big one that keeps slipping my mind, and there were catchment boards up and down the country. The point of all that is that there was a lot of research and a lot of investment into land use capability. So land use capability was a key tool that was developed during that time. That also includes the New Zealand Land Resource Inventory, that database that I mentioned before that we're responsible for maintaining. But equally, there was oodles of underlying research, other detailed land use capability surveys, and a whole host of other material that Manaaki Whenua, as the successor organisation, if you like, has inherited, and we hold at our various campuses. So yeah, we've inherited a lot of this material. Next slide, please, Thomas. Okay, back in the spotlight. Some of us have never really left the spotlight, but definitely an upsurge in interest with new wave policies. The new wave of policies, sorry, not new wave policies. So a lot of you here are probably well aware of the various NESs and MPSs. But I'd also like to point out, in the background, this is something as a research organisation that we have noticed, the demand for good spatial data for New Zealand has really been growing and continues to grow. And I'd just like to point out that despite its age, the New Zealand Land Resource Inventory is still New Zealand's #1 source of land resource information. Still the go-to for many people. Manaaki Whenua Land Care Researchers role. So we have an explicit responsibility as custodian of New Zealand Land Resource Inventory, so that database that I mentioned, to maintain that. So that's part of the Land Resources Information System. We work with others to promote the consistent use of land use capability to a standard, mostly through the Land Use Capability Governance Group. So this is a separate governance group involving industry, councils, researchers, all sorts of people. And the last point, the Manaaki Whenua has inherited much of the expertise and resources from that golden period that I mentioned before. And we feel we have a responsibility that's perhaps a little bit bigger than our mandate to try and provide some leadership and coordination around land use capability in New Zealand. So one of the things that we can do to give back to you guys is to make available all those old and new resources that we've inherited from our predecessors. Over to you, Thomas.
Thank you, Andrew. Kia ora koutou. I'm excited to give everyone a tour of our newest member of the Portals family, and it's called the Land Resources Portal. In the first instance, it focuses on the topic of land use capability, but probably in the future can also cover off other topics in the land domain. I'm aware that this is probably just only a small cog in the wider LUC machinery, but it's a new and shiny one. And before I show you the main features of the website, I should probably mention a few words on how we actually got to where we are now. Some of you may be familiar with the Soils portal, and for quite a long time we've had the idea to actually have an equivalent lands portal to accompany that. And at some stage the idea became more concrete with the LUC governance group, encouraging to establish a platform where we collect and disseminate vital LUC resources. I can say that from the help desks that we are running, we regularly receive LUC-related requests, and for example, for the Ministry of Works, bulletins, extended legends, etc. And so the idea was born that a website can be established that would in the first instance provide key documents about LUC and regional information produced as part of the NZLRI LUC effort since the 1990s, really. So in late 2022, we approached our web building partner, Manderson in Christchurch, who were keen to help us implement a new portal. I also at this stage want to mention the great support we have received from the LUC governance group, really all the way along from brainstorming the ideas for that website, but also reviewing draft wireframes and the website itself. Took about a year for us to build it and load all the content, do the digitization required, and the website finally went live end of November last year. So that's what you see here is a screenshot of the landing page. There are several ways you can access the content on the new Land Resources portal. You can either access it from the top of the screen here on the top menu, or you can also simply scroll down and on the landing page and just access what has been loaded so far. So you see in the top menu, we really have these three items here: topics, tools, and resources. This is a close up here, and this very closely mimics what we've done on the Soils portal. So first here we have the topics page space, which really is the content heavy section. This is where we place most of the written contents. Then we have the tools space in the middle here, which is basically pointing out the various services and platforms through which LUC data can currently be accessed, viewed, and downloaded. And finally, we've got the resources. So this is the part where we link the key LUC documents, the documentation per region, and so on. Let's have a closer look at those three spaces. First up is topics. We've made an effort to really provide LUC information around understanding LUC in the first place. So there is a brief history. We have an introduction to both LUC and NZLRI. And we also have a bit of a text about why we should still bother for these data sets, although they are of a certain age by now. We also have dedicated a section here on the LUC factors explained. There was a bit of discussion around that because most of you will probably be aware there is a very detailed LUC handbook, which is still the first source of information on this. And so we've basically not just copy pasted stuff from there. So basically just a summary here about LUC factors. A particular section in the topics is dedicated to LUC and scale and the particular pitfalls that are associated with using the data at an inappropriate scale. And finally, there is a page on the productive potential and how it relates to LUC. There is also quite a bit of information at LUC applications and including best practice, policy context, and examples at the local and the regional scale. This is a start, but certainly these sections can still grow a lot more. Finally, the topics section has glossary, FAQ, all the stuff you would expect, and of course, a page on the LUC governance. And I said here, watch this space, more topics to come. That's certainly true. The second space is the tools, rather than providing new tools. So the space really references the existing main pathways to access LUC data. That's why it's called a portal. So we don't just replicate what exists somewhere else, but really want to reference and guide people to where the information is sitting. Plus, there is a section of some of our other land-related tools. And it was suggested to me that I should probably quickly show you the main two tools or platforms that are listed here, our environment and also the LRIS portal. So because these are the main two pathways that people would probably use to access LUC data. The first one, our environment, there's the URL also down here at the bottom of the screen. So this is basically a tool that people use to view and query information. So what you can do here is, so this is a screenshot only, so I can't live demo, but you can take, you can drop a pin here from the right-hand menu on a particular location of interest. You can also draw an area or map and get a summary of the information for that area. So what you see here, also the coloring we have chosen for the LUC data, classes 1 to 8. So this is all the 2021 version of the LUC layer, which has the new national legend integrated. If you click on the obtain data button down here, you will actually get transported to the other main place for LUC data, which is the LRIS portal, which you can see here as a screenshot. There's a link at the bottom here again, which is the direct link to the LUC 2021 data. I think a fair number of you will be familiar with this coordinates-based platform. So rather than just querying information, you can actually here download LUC information to for further processing in a GIS. Note again that whatever tool you choose, the underlying data are the same. So which brings me to the last section, which is the resources section. And here, what the resources section currently features, and is probably the most content heavy as well at the moment, is the key LUC documents. We have chosen to also go for a map of New Zealand that has the LUC documentation per region. We also feature other publications, land and soil publications available through Manaki Whenua Land Care Research. And finally, there is information on digital LUC survey that was conducted in Northland between 2015 and 2017. So as an example, this is a screenshot of the key documents section. So probably stuff you would expect, like the LUC survey handbook in the 3rd edition. We've also scanned an older version here, from 1971, 2nd edition. You can find the introductory guide to farm soil mapping that Andrew has been authoring. So yeah, there's quite a bunch of stuff, and that's just the featured ones. Once you scroll down, so there's a lot of things that really have been scanned over time. The section on resources by region looks like this. So you would choose your region, for example, here the Bay of Plenty Volcanic Plateau, and this is usually the documents that you would get. You would get the bulletin. So this is the original National Water and Soil Conservation Authority bulletin. In that case, you would get a scan of the original extended legend. And plus there is actually a digitized version of this legend. And some of my younger colleagues have spent a considerable part of their life, at least of their work life, to digitizing all of the LUC extended legends. We also have a section on the National LUC legend here. So this is basically in the form of a Q&A, what the legend is, how it should be used, how it has been compiled, and where you can actually access it. And we hope this is useful information. As a summary, the good to knows, I finally have the URL here. So if you just want to visit it, play around with it, check it out. It's lrp.landcareresearch.co.nz. So that's for Land Resource Portal. I've mentioned it before, this is not a static product, so it's work in progress. We're very well aware of that. It's also because while we have knowledge and experience and ambitions in the space, there's a lot of other partners and stakeholders that are interested, and we really want to have this as a platform where we can work together and make all of our lives together easier by just providing what people need in that space. So we're definitely open to suggestions on how to improve that portal. If you just get stuck on the portal, there is a help desk, lrp@landcareresearch.co.nz. You will get to one of my knowledgeable colleagues. And yeah, there is always help at the other end. For my part, I want to say big thanks to the LUC governance group, Simon Stokes, Kerry Barton, and quite a few of our MLR staff who have been involved over time in this portal. And of course, not to forget Manderson in Christchurch, who have been helping all along to build that site. Yeah, over to you, Andrew, again, for a bit of an outlook.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. That was brilliant. So in terms of, just very, very quickly, so things that we've been working on, obviously the Land Resource Portal is something that Manaaki Whenua has been investing quite a bit of time in developing, and it looks very, very good for those who want access to those resources. It's a good landing point. Some of the other things that we've been working on, so Thomas mentioned the national classification or the national legend for land use capability. Some of these things, unless you're a technical person, you won't really appreciate the amount of work. The national legend, it's been years in development, so Ian Lynn, James Barringer, the key people who have been pushing this one through. It's very important for the LUC system itself, but it's not. We are also working on some more flashy things. Actively exploring opportunities from LIDAR. So yeah, we have active threads of research looking at digital solutions, solutions that are more objective, are going to stand up more to strong scrutiny, you know, evidence-based approaches. There's other people working in this space. It is a rapidly developing space. It's not my area, so I'm not going to talk about it today, but we can look in the future of perhaps having a webinar or something around this one in the future, because it's a very rapidly moving space. We continue to work with industry and others, especially the LUC governance group, great bunch of people. And we're currently working on a new revised draft national layer of highly productive land based on the classification of LUC class 1, 2, and 3 from SMAP data. This is one that I'm working on, so I'm happy to talk about this one. Thomas, there we go. Didn't really want the graphics, but that's cool. Okay, there is actually a strong argument for what we're doing. So for LUC classes 1, 2, 3, and 4, so basically the arable group of LUC classes, it's actually the soil factor that is the single most determining factor in most cases for classifying LUC. So SMAP is a very strong logical starting point. It is also, in terms of an actively being developed data set, we've got about 20 mappers out in the field at the moment, pedologists and field soil surveyors, who are actually out there digging holes, making observations. And as far as I know, that's one of the few active field mapping programs that are currently out there. Why don't we build on that? Very, very quickly, I'd just like to acknowledge that this work is continuing on from Linda Lilburn and Ian Lynn in particular, and a few others have helped out during the process as well. In terms of what we are doing, just back one, Thomas. Just in terms of a method, so what we've done, we've extracted the guidelines out of the handbook, and I emphasize that they're guidelines, they're not rules. Some things shouldn't end up in environment court. Incidentally, it shouldn't be consultants. The experts who actually put together the handbook are still available. They are well aware of what they meant when they actually wrote a certain guideline. Could be useful to actually talk to the people who actually put together those guidelines. Anyway, so what we've done is we've gone through the guidelines for each and every LUC class, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've extracted the guidelines as criteria. We've translated those criteria to SMAP attributes. And then we've basically coded it all up as a set of rules for each LUC class. Crank the handle, produce a map of New Zealand from SMAP data. This is an old map of coverage. I think this is the 2019, so it doesn't show extensive coverage. And then it's just an iterative process of checking and validating. Okay, Thomas. So just a quick example of some of the outputs, the intermediary outputs. These maps are for Hawke's Bay. So for each single soil attribute that qualifies for LUC1, that's basically what these individual maps are saying. So for SMAP soil depth, the green is what qualifies for LUC1. And we've done this for LUC1, 2, 3, and 4. And we've done it for each sibling, which is kind of what that little map, inset map down the bottom is showing, for each sibling within a map unit. So each SMAP map unit can have up to 5 different siblings, therefore up to 5 different LUC classifications and different levels of dominance. So at the moment, we're working through the validation process. The target is to have a draft by the end of the year. And we're working with some councils who have opted in for a more detailed validation, just a better quality and analysis. Okay, that's all from me. Other than acknowledging Sam Carrican, the CLR portfolio, for putting aside a small amount of internal funding to actually do this work. So it's not funded externally. This is something that Manaaki Whenua is actually invested in.
Great, and we've got a few minutes for questions, and there's some really interesting questions come in, and I'm going to have to say up front, some of these we can't possibly answer in short answers today. So, but please be with us. We will download all of those questions, and we will come back to you and share more comprehensive answers around some of those questions. LUC is obviously something of high importance to a lot of people. I want to ask 2 questions about the Land Resources portal first. And I wondered, Thomas, if a few people have said that they're struggling to find it through Google and so on. So who are the main users so far? And how do we need to make sure more people can find it?
Yes, so as I said, it's brand new, so Google will not have yet indexed all the pages. So if you just Google for Land Resources Portal as a keyword, it may take a few more months for it to pop up. But we're doing what we can from our marketing end to make that happen. Yes, the user base, the expected user base for this portal will be everyone involved in the LUC space, but mainly LUC practitioners, which means in this particular case, the portal has a narrower user base, we expect at least, than the soils portal. Yeah, but at least the way it's currently set up, it is like that. And as I said initially, the land resources portal as such will probably hold different themes over time, but we've decided to start with the LUC theme for now.
And it seems like a really pertinent start. Now we have one question, because a lot of our work and land use work covers the sort of agricultural land and the big picture land. Is there an urban LUC mapping handbook, and can we include that on the portal?
I would not know that. I know there is, I think we scanned, is that Andrew? There was an urban handbook, which I think I also had quickly shown in one of the slides. Just go back to that slide. I think there was something.
I'm pretty sure you've scanned it and it's available. There it is.
It's here on the left-hand side where it says Urban Land Use Capability Survey Handbooks. I'm aware that this exists, but it is, of course, a legacy document. So maybe the question would also be if this has been updated over time at some stage, or if we are really looking at this particular one as the latest one.
I think it needs to be reviewed, but it was born on the back of things like the Abbotsford landslide, so urban planning concerns, if you like.
Great, might be timely for that, for Auckland. One last question, and a few people have asked about resolution, farm scale LUCs, and so on. And you know, it is what it is at the moment. But is there anything that either of you can reflect about work in progress around improving the resolution of LUC and the ability for us to include higher resolution LUC data on the portal? Maybe Andrew, you could start, and then Thomas, you could finish.
This is very much a strategy question. So it's kind of like we are currently looking at what can be done. What do I mean by that? It is actually very easy to crank a handle, pull an R script, throw something out there very, very quickly with a loose classification run across it. We're a research organisation. We have to work to certain standards. We have to publish our results. So it's kind of like we're making sure that all ducks are lined up before we invest too heavily in certain areas. Because the information that we provide, people base important decisions upon. Part of that process is the validation process. So like I said, it is entirely feasible to generate highly detailed units and classifications, but they still need to be validated. So being a practical person, a pedologist, for something like soils, you never really know until you actually go out and dig a hole. So there's actually quite a bit of work there to get to the level of national farm scale. Now, saying that, there's other options, clever options that are currently being looked at. And again, this is something that we might report back on at a later point.
So whatever new product appears in the process will be referenced to from the land resources portal. It won't necessarily be loaded there. So if it is a geospatial layer, it will either be on our environment and or the LRIS portal, like the current LUC layers as well.
Great. So clearly this is a resource that takes you out to where you need to go for the latest information. So it's a hub. This is a great tool to have in your favorites on your web browsers because it will be something that's continually updated and an access to these experts as well as resources at their fingertips. Look, that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much for all the questions. There's some real gnarly ones there, so Thomas and Andrew have got their work cut out for them, and we will come back to people on that. Watch this space. We'll be back with another kind of related topic in March, so look out for the invitation for that, and goodbye for now.